Morning all. In brief commentary 33 of this brief commentary series, we saw Nakamura beat Mamedyarov quite convincingly recently, although there was some discussion did Mamedyarov resign prematurely. So let's have a look at the Tal Memorial now, which has just started. In round 1 on the 13th of June 2013, Nakamura playing white against Mamedyarov. So slightly higher rated at 2784, Mamedyarov is at 2753. D4 from Hikaru, and we saw knight f6 after c4 e6. So will this be a Nimzo Indian defense? Well, white now plays knight f3 and now d5, so it looks like Queen's Gambit declined. But this system here after knight c3, bishop b4, I believe is Ragozin territory. It's Queen's Gambit declined, Ragozin defense. As soon as we see knight f3 and bishop b4, this is the Ragozin defense. Now white played queen a4 check, and you might wonder why. It's not winning a piece because there's knight c6, but the point may be that the c pawn cannot attack white's center. But because c5 is unavailable, knight might actually be useful for e5 later. So it's not all a downside of this check. The knight actually might be useful for e5 break. We see now e3. White is just looking forward to normal development now after e3. Black castles. Now actually bishop d2 breaking the pin immediately, not moving this bishop just yet. And in fact, black plays now d takes c4. Okay, not minding that the bishop hasn't moved at all. Pardon me. Bishop takes c4. And now a6, which actually doesn't threaten to win a piece because this pawn is pinned against the rook. White just castles, bishop d6, and it looks as though, okay, the main point of bishop d6 and a6, it looks as though knight b5 is being discouraged here. Well, you can just take and then take the bishop here. So black is logically preparing this break in the center with e5 here, without interruption from knight b5. Okay, now in this position, if white tries d5, we can just take, and then there's a bishop h2 tactic as well. We've just got bishop h2 tactics on d5. So neither knight b5 nor d5 harmful for black, it seems. Rook ad1. And now, okay, the bishop is interrupting the rook from eyeing the queen here. Black dares to take this opportunity to play e5 here. It is a kind of liberating break in the center. It opens up this bishop. Okay, after d takes e5, knight takes e5, it looks as though black's quite comfortable now. Bishop e2, queen e7. Okay, so one question is, for example, you know, queen h4, is that ruled out? Is the queen of any use on a4 here? Well, tactically, I'm not sure it's actually working. Actually, let's have just a quick check there. Queen h4. Maybe just knight g6. Okay, knight g6, just driving it away. It's no big deal, and then black can play c5. Okay, looking forward to something like b5 and stuff, or bishop f5. Very comfortable position. Okay, so after in this position, this looks like a strange move now from Naka. Knight g5. It does potentially harass this bishop on d6 if knight e4 is coming up. But this next move from black, bishop f5, actually provides a big question mark about this idea of knight e4. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe Naka was discouraged here because there's forcing moves. If knight ge4, then knight takes, it's only the queen holding up the knight. So say b5, the queen has to go back here, rook a e8, and there's numerous threats here, like knight c4. It's just a very unpleasant pin in this position. Okay, so after bishop f5, it looks as though, you know, a bit of a change of mind, not using the e4 square for a piece. We see e4 kicking the bishop, but losing that e4 square for a piece. Also blocking the queen from ever coming to the king side here, like this. Bishop d7 attacking the queen. Queen drops back. h6, knight drops back. Now rook fe8, and white really enjoys a very comfortable position here. This e pawn is a bit vulnerable. If the knight moves, there's 3 pieces on the e pawn. We see rook fe1, and okay, the bishop. If the bishop drops back, then knight f3, doubling the pawns. So this e pawn's still a problem. But in this position, we see actually rook ad8, and you might think, well, isn't that quite interesting that black doesn't try and attack the e pawn here? Let's have a quick check on this position. Rook ad8 is given as a reasonably good move. I mean, there's another try just taking here and eyeing the king here, but it's answerable by g3, bishop g4, take. This should be okay for white, although black is better. But this move looks a little bit mysterious. Rook ad8. What is it actually threatening? It looks like a powerful, you know, neat centralization, and it's one of the things I actually find intriguing about this game. This kind of move here, because I'm pretty sure, you know, a lot of moves you might put them to positional grounds, but often there's specific nuances involved. I think it's possibly just trying to make sure the threat of knight takes f3 is used more effectively at a more effective moment, perhaps. Okay, white now plays g3, kind of ruling out an advanced knight takes f3 and queen e5. Now we see knight eg4. Okay, and there's a vulnerability here on f2, and also bishop c5 looks pretty dangerous, just to gang up on f2. And of course the e pawn is now attacked more than it's defended. Naka plays a very provocative move now, h3. So it's got a bit critical. He's created quite a few weaknesses around the king, and he's just asking for a piece sacrifice. The question is it sound? It is played knight takes f2, king takes f2, so already after bishop takes h3, k2 pawns for a knight, with a menacing threat of bishop c5 check. If bishop e3, there's knight g4 check. So this is very dangerous. The king steps back away from, trying to step back away from bishop c5, now losing a third pawn. So 3 pawns for the knight. Mikhail Tal would often sacrifice a knight to weaken the opponent's king, and it's the Tal Memorial. So this is I think the Tal game of the round for me. And so far with this situation here, the knight sacrifice for 3 pawns. But there's numerous other dangers. You know, queen c5 and knight g4 still. White tries bishop f1. Now we see bishop takes e1, so winning an exchange. Rook takes e1, so 3 pawns and got the exchange. Now bishop g4, and the threats persist. Bishop g2, and now a very nice forcing move. Bishop takes f3. After bishop takes f3, the point is queen d6, double attacking to play queen g3 check or queen takes d2. That's defended with rook e2 for the moment. Check. The rook can't go in front of the king because queen takes f3. So bishop g2. Now knight g4, the attack rages on, and there's various rook lifts here to consider as being very useful for queen h2 to make it more effective. White tries knight d1, and now rook e6. This rook lift looks really, really dangerous. For example, just at f6 to just cut the king from escaping for queen h2 to be much more effective. Naka tries knight e3, and perhaps you might think slightly curiously, is rook f6 effective here? Well, I think there might be knight takes g4, queen takes g4, queen c7. Let's have a quick check on that. Just quickly check. If rook f6, knight g4 is virtually the only move, then actually here, the rook's on. So they start not to do with c7, bishop c3, and it's still very good for black. But what was played is actually even more accurate. Actually, rook c6, driving the queen away first. Queen goes to b1, and this is all over. This is really, really bad now. Check here. King f1. And queen f4 check was played in this position, which may be even much stronger than rook f6 check. If rook f6, then knight f5. It's still terrible for white. In fact, there's a crushing move here. Rook takes d2, so this is pretty hopeless. This kind of situation. Check. Knight takes f5. It's a mop-up job. But in the game, even more strong, queen f4 check was played, and Naka resigned here. I think one of the points is king g1, there's the very powerful rook takes d2, and white's position is just crumbling. And if king e1, I think, well, either rook takes d2 or even stronger, check. And now this check is absolutely crushing. Here rook takes f5, check, check. Just winning lots of material. It's pretty nasty stuff. Okay, so it seems to be this game was Mamedyarov's revenge from brief summary game 33 that we looked at in this series. I just thought it was fascinating, and definitely in the spirit of Tal, the knight sacrifice. But Naka, of course, had weakened his king side considerably. If we just do a brief overview, very brief reflection on this game, somehow white's king side has got seriously weakened of this e5 break. It's this knight defender of h2. It looks as though white's just in trouble on the king side in this continuation here, and with e4 vulnerable, if he doesn't move the rook, how is he like defending his king side? The bishop pointing at the king. There isn't any problems for black like this, so black's got the attacking advantage here. It's like leaning over h2 here without any problems on corresponding h7 for black. So I thought that was very, very interesting how black seemed to have the attacking advantage in this game, which culminated in this knight sack and utter devastation for white's king coming up. So a very instructive game in the spirit of Mikhail Tal, and it is the Tal Memorial. This didn't happen there. White resigned here. So great game from Mamedyarov. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.